We're back to Neil Haley's show, and I'm excited to welcome author Lisa Gardner, author of Still See You Everywhere. Lisa, thanks for stopping by. How are you?
Great, thank you.
So, how did you start out as an author? Tell us that story. How did that happen?
Oh, I'm a bit of an odd one. I grew up in Oregon as a reading aholic, and when I was 17, I just decided to write a book, so I did. When I was 20, I published it. I say ignorance is bliss. I'd never met an editor, an agent, an author, so I didn't really know that it was supposedly hard or that I was biting off more than I could chew. So,
So, it was pretty easy to get published, not the normal story.
yeah, I mean, it did still take a couple years of waiting for someone to read it because this was way back in the early 90s. So, you know, there wasn't the internet. You actually sent in the real manuscript and it sat on someone's desks for, a year and a half, apparently. So, and then when I got lucky, I was in college and the acquisitions editor recognized my address as the dorm she had gone to. So that helped, gave
How
her
did
encouragement to read it.
so when you got your New York Times best-selling book, that changed everything. Was it the first book you wrote or not? Or it took you a couple times?
Yeah, no. So it's this one of these fun stories too, where it was still 10 years before it became an overnight success. Those first books were great, but I got earned enough money to like buy my first computer with one, then I got to buy a printer with the other. And it was more, the more I wrote, the more I knew I wanted it to be my full-time job. And so I came up with an idea for a thriller where a serial killer breaks out of prison and takes revenge against everyone who put him there. And that became, again, 10 years later, my overnight success.
So, what do you tell authors? You wrote a lot of books before it happened, right?
Yeah. I mean, what is it? There's an adage really to use. I mean, first you have to survive and then you can succeed.
Was it the same publisher that stuck by you the whole time?
No, I've actually been with several different publishers. And I mean, they're changing all the time right now as well. They're buying each other out. They're coming, they're going. I can't even keep track of the musical chairs going on in New York these days.
Oh wow! And in that process, once you get published, is it easier to get published again?
It is definitely. And one of the things I did, those first few books I published without an agent. Once I knew I wanted to be serious about this, it was actually other author friends. They helped me get my first agent, and that made a big difference as well.
So let's talk about specifically enough the book that kind of changed your life with the New York Times best-selling book, and then how some of the books you've written, and then your latest book.
Okay.
All right, so let's go into that. The first book that became the overnight success 10 years later.
Yes.
You talked about the murder.
Yeah.
So serial killer that was let out. That's weird, right? That doesn't
Actually
have
breaks out.
breaks out,
Breaks out of prison.
breaks
Yeah.
out. But that's scary, right?
Yeah.
If that could
So
ever happen. Good.
I got an agent, and the first thing she said was thrillers are really big right now because I was doing more like romantic suspense, and
Okay.
serial killers were really trending as well. So she's like, I want you to go write a big serial killer book. But I'm still young. I've never met an FBI profiler, a cop, anything. So I didn't feel like I knew how to do that. So I kind of turned it into a domestic suspense where really the point of view is ex-wife. She's one of the people who helped put him away in prison, and she knows he'll come for her first and their daughter. So that ended up being a nice way for me to try to tell a story where I was a little more comfortable. And it's that just found a big audience because I think so many people could relate and they like it's almost like that JLo movie Enough, I think, that came out later. She's trying to prepare, learn how to fight, learn how to shoot, because when Jim Beckett comes from her, it's going to be bad. And she wants to protect her daughter. So that hit
Wow.
big with readers.
Did it ever get optioned, that book, for a movie?
It did. It actually got turned into a movie called Instinct to Kill, I think it was. Actually, Mark Dacascos starred in it, who's now been in the John Wick movies,
Oh,
Hawaii
wow.
Five-O. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun.
So let's talk about your latest book, Still See You Everywhere, and talk about why you wrote this book.
This book for me was fun. So I kind of started, The Perfect Husbands like 20 years ago now with serial killers. And then I went on to do a lot of different things, and Still See You Everywhere brings you back to I could kind of clearly my fondness for serial killers. Except in this one, we meet a female serial killer, the beautiful butcher, who has murdered 18 men and fed them to her pigs and would happily do it again if she could get out. So, but she's now 3 weeks from execution on death row, and she's just got a note she believes is from her baby sister who was kidnapped 15 years ago. And her
Oh,
dying wish is basically that her sister be safe. So she reaches out to Frankie Elkin, who is a missing persons expert who does, the kind of cases no one else will take on.
yeah.
And she ends up going to a remote atoll in search of, can she find this poor, would be now still a young woman? And is she being held against her will? What has happened?
And then what's interesting when you talk about feeding them to the pigs, I think of Silence of the Lambs and that type of thing. Yeah, that's scary.
It's
That's not.
kind of time honored, for lack of a better word. Some of these things you do in thriller novels, people like, how did you think of that? And I'm like, oh, actually, for the record, it's been done, sadly, in real life. Kind of.
Were those boars? What were for the last Silence of the Lambs? Was that boars or what was that? Where they those
Wow.
attack those attack? They were huge. Remember, they were scary.
Yeah. That,
They
yeah.
the one looked like a pig man, remember, and he ended up
Yes.
getting eaten at the end. But the ones he would feed people to, that was not that made was probably more scarier than I guess the serial killer to know that your threat, what would happen to you is getting eaten alive. No,
Yeah,
nothing.
no, yeah, that is, yeah. I read a lot of true crime and I spend a lot of time. I'm actually fascinated by the criminology, like why a female serial killer, most of them are men. And there are theories behind that. Men externalize rage, so they will have a surrogate and that becomes their victim. Women internalize rage and will become self-destructive. But in the past 30 years, since I started doing this, there's been a lot of equality and women are much more comfortable with their rage now. And look, here we go. Equality in other aspects of life too.
Yeah, you wouldn't think of that, but there are serial killer women, but they maybe got away with things more before because no one would suspect them. And maybe there
Yeah,
are a lot of cold cases of serial killer women. Think about when we watch, that TV show, not on True, that basically they always ID channel. They
yeah,
always talk about these women that feed these men and poison them for years on. And I didn't get it. I didn't
yeah,
understand it. And then I end up because they wanted my insurance policy. And that was some of these women ended up killing over and over and over
yeah,
again, but no one was suspected. They think of someone's health issues. They target people that could have those health issues. There's a lot of very silent ways compared to the rage of a man that's going to literally just
yeah.
leave a mess. Women don't leave as many messes. That's my theory. Here you go. There are a lot of cold case women, serial killers we don't know about.
It's the proverbial arsenic and old lace. So interesting enough, when I was writing Still See You Everywhere, because Frankie ends up in this remote atoll that I had a chance to visit a couple years ago. And I mean, so isolated, only 12 people, no way to get on or off, easily at all. I kept thinking of, and then there were none. The whole time I was there, I was like, especially there's these coconut crabs that come out in life at night, and this is in the real world again, and they are terrifying. And each night walking the paths with these things, and if they appeared, you got to walk someplace else. They were quite territorial. It was just like, will we survive the 10 days each morning? It's like, okay, who's going to be missing now?
This could be a lifetime movie, right? This book.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, I can think of a woman serial killer and the stories, and then someone searching. It could be. I could. That's definitely set for lifetime, maybe.
What I like about the beautiful butcher who ends up, getting Frankie to go do this is, that old adage, we're all a hero in our own story. She'll freely admit that, she's somewhat evil because, she did murder 18 guys. But at the same time, she genuinely loves her sister. And a lot of stuff she did in her mind was to protect her sister. So there's that aspect as well.
Oh wow, it's a lot of exciting things coming. I'm sure you told me about the 20-year hiatus. You did not do any serial killers for 20 years of
Well,
writing.
I did probably 5 or 6 like FBI profiler books. It was interesting for those of us who are novelists because, Silence of the Lambs really broke out. Everyone now
Huh.
wanted serial killers. But then when you started to get shows like Criminal Minds, and now people are getting a serial killer a week in their living rooms, it almost became hard to compete with, like how much more horrific or macabre can you
Right.
get? So I got more into police procedurals because there's just so many different kinds of
Right.
crimes. And
Because
then I've
forensics are very interesting. CSI, all that, very big.
yeah. And then the last three books have been Frankie Elkin, which is another trend we're seeing again in real life of almost like amateur sleuths working cold cases.
Well,
Everything from Sherlock societies, they call themselves, that get together and are possibly trying to work like Jack the Ripper, like some of the
right.
old classic cases, to there's actually some women in real life who do what Frankie do. There are hundreds of thousands of people that go missing that no one's even looking for,
Oh my
generally
gosh.
minorities, marginalized communities. And again, if the police were going to find them, they would have. So you're not talking about forensics anymore, and you're not talking about, being a detective. Often it's just asking the right people the right questions and not being a member of law enforcement, being someone like Frankie that starts getting the right information out. People feel more comfortable talking.
Think about different things. If you watch, organized crime on NBC or different things
Yeah.
like that, Law and Order, organized crime, or different, and
Yeah.
then again, all those. There are, you're right, but I still think there's a need. It just depends on the publisher, and it depends on the thing. If I would say that my idea for an author nowadays is for them to go and raise the funds and then make the movie themselves and be involved in the production versus optioning. It was interesting because I'm working with some now I'm going to be going Chris Mulkey, an actor, wrote a screenplay on the Road Warriors, about to sign the deal. I'm going to go out and pitch it to
Oh,
investors.
fun.
So I'm doing that, and I also have a documentary coming out for my comeback into professional wrestling. I stopped in '99, so I'm fundraising that. So I have those different ideas in the movies, but kind of a tip for authors is just because you option your book. I was talking to Brian Cuban about that. He said, I got an option. I said, get it made, because it's harder nowadays to get the big people to want to do movies, which is opening up the door, but there's still money to be made with everyone looking for B stars or one A lister with a bunch of B stars in an independent film that could do really well and have a lower budget. Never
I
know.
was very fortunate. Hilary Swank actually optioned Frankie Elkin, but we've had the writer's strike, we've had this, we've had that. So what will actually happen is still very much in the
So
air.
are you guys at investors stage? You can't say in the certain things.
Yeah, no, I don't know enough really so I'm
I'll
letting the
shut up on that.
production.
But
Yeah.
I don't think you thought you'd have a journalist saying I'm involved in all this stuff. So yeah, we definitely don't have to stay in touch, because the thing is, when you talk about it, is the key thing is authors need to start to do what Tyler Perry did. Tyler Perry was a genius in the fact that he would make it all himself, then sell it to the studios to get syndication. If you watched his documentary, the genius way he built his empire is not just optioning his stuff out. Maybe
Yeah.
authors need to start contacting someone like me that has the context and just go ahead and be involved in the movie more. Because think about it. Think of if you were like one of the main producers of a big movie that did so well, you're getting paid. And authors need to get paid more for their genius. And that's my take.
I don't know authors that would disagree with that.
But it's amazing. So you're still writing
Yeah.
more things new. So we're gonna see this in movies someday. That's great. I look forward to it with Hillary
Yeah.
Swank. But again, now they're starting to make content. It's happening. So be
Yeah.
ready. That's what someone said from Extra. We're about to see the biggest renaissance of content created we've ever seen in our lives in movies and TV
It's
shows.
been great to have streaming services now, doing the limited series, they call it, for books. Because I've had four books become TV movies, so to speak. And I mean, it's not great. I mean, it's only 40% of the book can be told in an
And
hour
how
and
much
40
do you
minutes.
end up with your stories end up? I mean, I know you can't say a number. Do you get what percentage they usually give authors on that?
Oh,
Just with those types.
yeah, this was actually a little bit older on where it was more you were just paid up front kind of thing, so
Oh,
not a percentage thing. But the finished work is just so dramatically different. But now, if you can do like 8 episodes of an hour each, now you can really truly get into the book and what our vision was. So it's
well,
been really great to have those opportunities. And there's some really, like you said, there's some really exciting content out there now. And I'll be excited to see what happens with Still See You Everywhere.
let's think about Harry Bosch. Let's think of Lincoln
Yeah,
Lawyer. What is his author's name? It's in the tip of my tongue.
Michael Connolly.
Michael Conley, because I've had I've had Harry Bosch, the original Harry Bosch on my show, meaning the guy, and I've had
Yeah,
people, but what I've learned, so there you go. He did it right. He got a good piece of the pie. You have a huge fan base. The reason why Bosch was successful was not because of Amazon. It was all because of the books. So that's what you think about when you're writing something. Create it for
yeah.
a series, take ownership of it, be an executive producer, and then you're going to be paid beyond your. I've been hearing the numbers for all the streaming services; they're paying a ton. This is me giving you my tip of the day.
Okay, I
I'm
like it.
saying they're really giving good money. That's why I'm getting in the film business. All right,
There
where
you
can
go.
people pick up your latest book? Is it available now, or is it
Yes.
soon?
Still See You Everywhere is available any place books are sold. And I'm not in the movie business just yet, but if you want to have fun, you can go to lisagardner.com. And as of today, enter the Kill a Friend, Made My Buddy sweepstakes and nominate the person of your choice to die in my next novel.
That's awesome. Appreciate
A
it. Thanks
little
again.
community service.
All right, you're listening and watching the Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.